Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the Xbot on Season 4, Episode 8. I am your host, Alejandro, with me, making his grand long return to the podcast in 3 years.
3 years?
Yes,
Oh my
because it was
God.
2021, it's 2024 now. So, Statics Media co-creator
Oh my lord.
from when this channel used to be called Statics
2018?
Media. Yeah.
Oh my lord.
Statics Media and now became XCape Media slash XCape Gaming. My friend JOK PJ, how you doing?
Hola, how's it going? I'm doing good, man. Life's been a lot. Sorry, apparently it's been 3 years since I've been here.
Yeah.
Holy, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can curse. You can curse. I can
Okay,
make it explicit. Yeah.
Holy shit. That is a long period of time.
Mhm.
Dude, when we met each other,
What's 2016?
we met in 2016, right?
Mhm.
I was 20, I think, right? Somewhere in
Maybe.
there, maybe 19.
I was 20. I was 22 by then. So, and now I'm
Oh my-
30. So it's been 8 years.
Yeah, and I'm 27 now. It's
Mhm.
like, dude, what makes me think about it this way: you are older than Jordan was when we knew him at.
He's probably close to 40 now, right?
No, I think
Yeah.
he's like 36 now. But yeah, you're right.
But he's getting closer.
He's
So
getting
yeah.
close.
Man, I miss Jordan. Have you talked with Jordan?
It's been a while.
Okay, yeah, it's like because I know he kind of like just disappeared because he's not much on social media, and I at least can keep up with some of your tweets, like you asking what needs to be played to be able to understand Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I see kind of like those tweets once in a while.
Yeah.
So at least I know what you've been like, what you do once in a while on top of your streams. But glad to have you back again because it's like the last time you were here was for a Metroid Dread spoiler discussion with you.
Oh my god, I love that game. I still
me
love
and
that
Paul,
game 3 years
so.
later. Yeah.
I don't know if I love it as much, but I still like it because I remember saying that was probably my favorite Switch game, but my favorite Switch game is Tears of the Kingdom now. So
Oh yeah, I mean,
easy.
Easy. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty easy win.
Mm.
I mean, when it comes to like classic Metroid games or 2D Metroidvania games, I
Yeah.
think it still holds the cake. It's probably my favorite like classic Metroid game.
I know I like it now more than Fusion because I went back to Fusion afterwards. I was like, okay, yeah, Dread is actually better. So I got to have you here. There's like a few fun things that we're gonna definitely talk about. But before we get into that, this is just a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast or gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing. Available on the YouTube channel XCape Gaming as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/XCape Gaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. And for the housekeeping, you can go read my recent reviews over at seasongaming.com. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and Skull and Bones. They're live. My next review.
Go read them.
Yes.
Go read them.
And my next review will be Final Fantasy VII Rebirth whenever that happens. And we're recording literally hours away from that game releasing. So I can't wait to talk about it. But PJ, fortuitous time to have you here because you just beat Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. Tell me.
100 hours, man. 100 hours
that's
flat.
Nuts.
I had a 4-day weekend because I was overworked at my job. They told me to go home and have a 4-day weekend.
Ooh.
And I had so many plans for that weekend. I was going to make content. I was going to go out and I was going to work out. I was going to do a lot of things. Man, I'm not even kidding you. 64 hours of just straight Infinite Wealth.
Yeah.
Like I played that game nonstop.
Now, real quick, is it the best Yakuza game?
Okay, so
I'm just doing that because if you go to TikTok, you can go see PJ's TikTok where he did like a tier list of the Yakuza games before he beat Infinite Wealth. So
so I did a Yakuza tier list for YouTube and for TikTok. Both comments hate me a lot. There's some of them that love me, but I put some people's favorite game as my least favorite game in the series, which is 5.
Oh, okay. I thought it was 3. Yeah.
No, I put 5 lower than 3. People wouldn't get mad at me as much if I did 3, but I put 5 low just because, in my opinion, I feel like a game shouldn't hold you hostage, and I feel like once you get ready to finish the game, people making the game should like know that and be willing to make the game end.
I've heard that 5 is the most exhausting to finish.
It's so long. It's so long, man. And the hardest problem with 5, this is the only thing I'm gonna say on it because I want to talk about 8, is the gameplay loop is great. Don't get me wrong. I actually like 5. I genuinely don't even think that there's a bad Yakuza game. I just think there's some games that aren't my personal preference. And 5 wasn't my personal preference because by the end of the game, I've already pretty much seen everything and done everything, but now I know I have 5 more hours of story to go, and I'm like, oh my lord, let me end this game, please.
Yeah.
So that's the only reason why I like 4 more than 5, even though everyone hates 4. Anyways, 8. So as I mentioned, I made the Yakuza tier list, right? I mentioned how Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 7 are goats. A lot of people don't like turn-based combat. That's fine. 7 might not be your thing, but if you're more open to different gameplay styles, 7 is probably one of your favorite, if not your favorite, if it's not 0. Everyone pretty much agrees that 0 and 7 are the best of the Yakuza series, right?
Yeah. The series got big thanks to 0. Like, that's when that series exploded.
Huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, series got huge thanks to 0, which is phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, I'm really glad there's a lot of new people playing the series. But when we're talking about 8, just as I mentioned earlier, everybody has their favorite games. I put 5 as my least favorite. A lot of people think it's their favorite game, right? So there's one thing that's great about the Yakuza series is that I don't think there's necessarily a bad game. And it's definitely shown by the fact that there's so many vocal minority groups in the Yakuza fan base that scream that this game is their favorite and they hate this one, but then everyone else loves this game and hates that game that they love so much.
So there's like there's rare for it to be a consensus, basically, because
it's almost worse in the Sonic community. It's almost worse than the Sonic community, because I'm also in that too. So where no one can agree on what's the best Sonic game, right? No one can agree what's the best Yakuza game. Now, I will say it is pretty like unanimous that everyone agrees that Yakuza 0 and 7 are like 2 of the best ones. Yakuza 8 will absolutely and does absolutely sit firmly in that top tier.
And now, real quick, PG, now that you like completed it, would you recommend anyone play 8 if they have never played a Yakuza game, like
Hell
ever?
No. Hell no. I want to. Don't get me wrong, because I think 8 does everything. So the only reason why 7 isn't my personal favorite game of all time anymore, personal favorite Yakuza game of all time anymore, is there are some things in that combat that I think just doesn't translate super well. But 8 took everything bad out of 7, took it out, replaced it with something phenomenal, and kept everything good and cranked it to 10. So there is literally not a bad like gameplay loop in 8.
Yeah, and 8 also kind of like, because it evolved the turn-based combat, right?
Yes, right.
In 7, I remember, because I played 7 briefly, you couldn't even move when you were picking your attacks, and that one you kind of like can reposition yourself. So it's like sort of turn-based, but with a little bit of an active time element to it that kind of like mixes both worlds. And then when you switch to Kiryu, you can do like combos or something like that, I kind of heard.
Yeah, so that's they advertise that, but honestly, that's a thing that you get pretty late game.
Okay, so it's not something immediate.
Yeah, it's not really like a staple until like honestly like the last 3 chapters of the game, which is a really weird decision of them to do, in my opinion. But whatever, it has a story element to it. So even 7 kind of played a little bit like, you know, like Paper Mario and those games, like Mario RPG, where you know, if you can perfect block and attack when they come at you. You know, so there is more of an interactive gameplay loop rather than just turn-based combat in general. But now you also have like repositioning yourself and positioning in the middle of that as well. So there's definitely more layers to it now than there ever has been, and it's very welcome. Also, fun little fact about 7, a lot of people for some reason forget. In 7, as you mentioned, you can't move, right? If you select somebody, if you select an enemy that is standing behind another enemy and your character runs by that first enemy to attack that second enemy, there is a chance that first enemy will attack you and interrupt your move, because it's a like opportunity of attack, which is something that's in a lot of RPGs like D&D, but you can at least reposition yourself in those games so you don't have to deal with opportunity of attack. You just have to suck it up and deal with that chance in 7, and that sucks. That does not exist in 8 anymore, and that is beautiful. Love that.
And now, real quick, how great is Danny Trejo in that game? Machete.
He's not in it as much as I want him to be. But his performance is fire. His performance is fire. He's just not in it as much as I want.
And now, like, without going into too heavy spoilers, even though like the trailer basically spoiled like Kiryu's like predicament there, does he get a good ending? Like,
yes, phenomenal. I think everybody in the Yakuza Yakuza-verse, Yakuza fandom, whatever, all pretty much agreed that if Kiryu died and it had a terrible ending or anything like that at the end, we would all just disown this game and just say it's not canon and wait for a new canon game. But I think we are all pretty satisfied with how that story wrapped up and how everything is done. I have no complaints about the ending. I don't think the end villains are as interesting as they were in 7 and some other games. That's probably my biggest complaint about the story. But the ending for Kiryu's like story, wrapping up a bow, everything, and all the other characters, like it's super good. It's
yes.
very,
And now real quick, if anyone is interested in checking out this game, like to you, like what would be the prep? Like, since you already asked like something with Final Fantasy, now I'm here coming into Yakuza being like, okay, because obviously it's like it cannot be enjoyed standalone according to many fans. Like I kind of even wanted to test that, but then like you convinced me otherwise. Like other people be like, no, just play 7. I'm like, I don't have time to play 7 right now.
It rolls right off of the heels of 7. Like 7 ends, and then there's the option to play 7.5. Highly recommend it, which is Gaiden.
The man who sold his name.
The man who something like that. Yeah. The man who erased his name, I think is what it was. And then it goes right into 8. Like there's like very little time in between those games.
Would those two be enough to enjoy 8? Like if no one has the time to go back to even 0, even though like I feel like 0 is pretty good. Like I got to play it a little bit just to kind of test it and be like, oh, this is kind of fun.
So in the ideal world, I would say play every game before 8, because 8 references literally every game before 8. But I do have a friend right now that is playing 8 who just beats, or he's playing Gaiden now. He just beat 7. He beat 0 a long time ago, but he just watched a recap video from 1 and 6. Don't recommend that because I'm a big fan. I would love for people to experience those games. But if you absolutely just don't want to play those games, you don't give a shit, whatever, fine. You know, I can suck it up. But I do recommend at the very least, play 7 in Gaiden first.
Okay, those at least can help you enjoy some parts of 8 more than just jumping like straight up.
And even if you don't want to spoil everything, a lot of Kiryu's side content is actually optional, so you can technically skip a lot of Kiryu's side content if you actually want to go back and play those earlier games, which does make that a lot more approachable. Cool. It's just hard to recommend it without 7 and Gaiden because it directly references characters, not even references. Characters from those games are in 8, and they don't ever tell you who they are. They just assume that you know who these characters are. And like, I can't imagine that be anything but jarring. Like whenever you have Kiryu, who's known to be the main character of the series, all of a sudden walks in and he's like being led around by somebody, and somebody's being his boss, and you're like, wait, what the hell? What happened? What's going on? And they never address it ever. So
that's okay. That's funny. So I'm debating in playing 7 and Gaiden like probably this summer, because right now everything is just kind of like so wild with the things that are coming out. But I got so close, like, because the reviews of 8 were so damn high, and everyone was just like, man. And everyone keeps telling me so good. And I'm like, should I just be like be a poster fan and just jump straight into this one? Like I got close.
I think 8 might have my favorite turn-based combat of like almost any turn-based game I've played. There's some that give it a run for its money for sure, that because you know I'm a big JRPG like turn-based fan, right?
Especially Dragon Quest.
A huge Dragon Quest fan. But god dang, dude, 8 is like, the combat in 8 is so good. I have very minor complaints that don't actually mean much. And it's not even based on the combat, it's based on the job systems. Like the actual combat itself is so good.
JRPG fans are eating good right now, because I mean, like, Persona was there. For people that want more action RPG, Grand Blue Fantasy was there. Obviously we got the hybrid that is Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth out when this episode is out, because we're recording it a little earlier. Yeah, so it's like it's Japan supremacy right now, and it's like so. It's like they feel like they're the ones like holding the fort right now, because everything else in the gaming industry is kind of like on fire, or just like more like safer. But it's like I'm glad that this generation has been like a resurgence of like Japan supremacy, or like kind of like we went through the years where Japan was being shit on. Remember the 360 and PS3 era? Where
I remember.
They were barely doing anything, and they were like being like so disowned, because it was like, no, it's the American way, the only way to do games. And then slowly they kept creeping back. And this feels like
today talked about the 2 JRPGs that are on the Xbox 360 to somebody.
Lost Odyssey
and Blue Dragon.
And Infinite on Discovery, because there was the third one. Yeah. It's so wild to think that it was the 360 that had that, because not even the PS3 had that. It was like that Japanese games really like went through a dark time during that era. That's why like Call of Duty was like so big, and now like it feels like Japan has the flavor. Japan has kind of like the the sustainability is like when I see them be like celebrating 1 million copies sold and not hearing cool 1 million copies sold, time to lay off people. It's like that's when you know that over there at least like they're keeping some sort of control in budgets. And now like I feel like weeps are like now the dominant fandom now. It feels like it's like you loving something Japanese or anime is not frowned upon like it even was like a decade ago. So it's like now it's like more so fully embraced, and I'm glad that even the next few months still have a lot of Japanese stuff. Like Dragon's Dogma 2 is coming in. Like there's the South Korean game Stellar Blade coming soon. There's Rise of the Ronin from like Team Ninja. So it's like and then there's the Metaphor Fantasia from Atlas, the team that made Persona 5. That's that's kind of like their next game. On top of Persona 3, that's been like super well received. That remake is like this is the best. This is like Japan is like showing again like why they're the daddies of gaming. So
as of recent news, because this is something you may not have seen that that just kind of clicked with me. It came up last week. Did you see the charts for the like richest companies in Japan?
I had not. Like at least if it recently came out, I didn't see it.
Yeah, it came out.
Wasn't Nintendo still there? Week. Yeah, wasn't
Nintendo was number 1 this year, and a lot of people don't understand why Nintendo could be number 1 because it's like, well, they're not as big as Microsoft and stuff. Well, here's the reason why. You were mentioning this, right? Like, oh, we're selling 1 million copies, we have to lay off people. That's the American way. Japanese way. We made 1 million. We sold 1 million copies. We're good. We're chilling. We're big chilling. Let's start making more games, right? Well, the reason why is because Western business really likes to go into debt. Right. So the reason why Nintendo is Japan's number 1 largest, most wealthy company.
Their war chest is huge.
Because they have made it very clear from ground zero, day 1, they are still actively in $0 debt. Fun fact. As a company, having 0 debt that large is massive. That is so cool.
Because everything is profit. It's like they can make games on the cheap, even though like their big games were like expensive, but it's not because there's like no depth involved. It's like they have had that war chest basically.
Anybody. They're only paying for their own employees, and they're sitting clean.
And that war chest is what saved them in the Wii U. The moment where that would have sunk any other company because how bad the Wii U sold for them. But it's like because they had like a good ethos, they had like good expenditures, they had the war chest kind of like keeping them. It's like them writing it off all the way into the Switch, and now seeing where they are, where they've just been like piling on and on. Do you see like now the Switch is 139 million units?
That's wild.
Like sold. It's like it's this close to PS2 levels. Who would have thought that? And we're definitely gonna talk. Definitely want to talk more about Switch when we talk about Switch 2 later, like in the news. Anything else that you play other than Like a Dragon, or that was just kind of like your one thing?
That was like my brain is mush because it's the only thing I've been able to think about for the last week or two. Fun fact: I started playing Yakuza 7 again last night because
you're in the mood.
I got off of 8, and I was like, previous to this, 7 was probably my favorite game, and I was like, I have to know. I have to know if I think 8 is better or not. And first impressions, I'm gonna be like, yeah, sure, but in reality, I haven't played Yakuza 0 or Yakuza 7 in maybe 4 or 5 years. Or 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, you don't want recency. It's kind of like I was talking with Paul actually yesterday in our chat. Kind of like recency bias is real because I just for me, what I've been playing, like to me, my life has just been Final Fantasy VII Remake because. Since I'm doing the Rebirth review, I wanted to replay Remake because I only beat that thing once back in 2021. Like when it came out in 2020, I played it on and off because that was a weird year with the pandemic. I was wary of finishing new games that year because it was like, guys, like we're in lockdowns. I don't want to run out of like new stuff. I want to kind of like savor. I want to savor the stuff, and then I just let a bunch of things pile up. So I played that intermittently until I finished it. I was actually I finished it. Streaming it during its anniversary, during the game anniversary, like the original game anniversary in February 2021. That's when I first finished it.
That's cool.
So, and I streamed it through Facebook, and I still have a few of the streams up, but the audio was jacked up. That's when I had first gotten all the equipment that you told me to get, and I was still trying to figure out. So the audio was all fucked up, like with like constant echoes and all that. So it was like a very amateurish
it was also
stream.
So long ago.
Yes,
I've grown so much as a like content creator and such by then. I feel like if I saw the things I recommended you to get, I'd be like, dog, what was I doing?
Yeah, I've been listening to. I sometimes listen to our old episodes of the podcast, the one we did Statics Radio back then. I'm like, dang, I was like, I've definitely grown. I've definitely grown. Because remember that the podcast was hosted by Paul at first, because I was doing the website when we were still statics and we kind of wanted to give him something, but he didn't know how to host, so I had to take that from him, and kind of we flipped it, and then that's how I kind of be growing with that. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake, this was my first time beating the PS5 version, and I'm like halfway through the DLC that they released kind of like a year after, called Intermission, and I have to bring you in front of the congregation because you made a big revelation like sometime last year that you only played 30 minutes of the original Final Fantasy VII, and you only experienced that game watching your father. But then you like shit talk that game for so long, like you knew.
I never shit talked 7. I shit talked 15.
Oh yeah, 15. Yeah, no, 15. You absolutely decimated. We had that conversation, but it's like.
I don't mind 7. I think 7's a great game. I actually played 6 and I love 6.
No, 6 is a better game. Like 6 is the better. Like 6
I thought it was crazy for that, but I've been seeing some reviews coming out and people are like 6 was actually so good. And I was like, I wasn't crazy for that.
No, you're not crazy. It's it's probably the most universal like agreed upon opinion about which one because. Similar to what you were talking about the Yakuza games, it's like there's like so much division about like what is a good Final Fantasy game and what it's not. But 6 is the one that it's always at the top. Then like 12 is like some people love and others despise it. 13 is another one that's despised, and now suddenly there's like a resurgence because so many of the things that made 13 good were all over 7 remake and 16. So everyone was like,
I'd imagine there's more division because the games don't flow into each other.
Yeah, like because everyone is everything's so different. Like,
so we're like in Yakuza. Like, I feel like I see division because a lot of the early games are so freaking similar in combat and everything. Like, there's a lot of different.
Yeah, they're brawlers. Yeah, they're brothers.
Yeah, they all play the same, like, or a similar like loop of gameplay. So everyone just has their like pick of the week, their favorite, right? Whereas like Final Fantasy, I feel like would be polarizing because every game plays so drastically different.
Yeah, like for example, because I dug up some old tweets just to remember. I remember it was like, oh yeah, when PJ said that he never played it, and you had mentioned that the thing that turned you off of 7 was that it wasn't true turn based, and it's kind of like I think like what you get is because like you didn't like the ATV system that always kept like the thing going and didn't let you probably think about strategy because you had to like think always on the fly. So that was introduced in 4, and that carried from 4 all the way to 9. Then 10 brought it back to full turn based, and then when 12 came out, it's like it wasn't even turn based at all. It was like the weird gambit system that was like an MMO combat system that you're kind of like moving around, similar to like a dragon.
Was it? Was it in 6 really? Because I played 6 on the PS1. Was it PS1?
Yeah. It was like, in Super Nintendo and PS1. So it was like it had the it had the ATV system that is like you had to wait for like the meter to fill up, and while that's filling up, some enemies may attack you while you have to like think on the fly and all that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I remember. So I played through 6. Like my dad let me play 6. But he was like helping, right? But he was like helping me. But I remember that game so vividly. I watched him play 7, and then he wanted me to like. He asked if I wanted to play 7, and I wasn't crazy about it. I was also really young, right?
Yeah.
So the Final Fantasy games I have played are 1 through 3. I played 6. I played I think it was
now. Do you play original 3 because 3 in the US was known as 6, so that's what.
No, I played the original 3 because my dad was goated sure he had him on the NES SNES. But we played him emulated. So I played 1 through 3. I played 6. Was 9 the MMO one?
No, 11 and 14.
Okay. So I played 9, and then I played 15 and 16.
Yeah. So
I loved 16. I know everyone hates that game, but I loved it.
That's the thing. It's not hated. It's just like the vibe. Especially the hardcore people that are more like, I wanted it to be RPG. They're the ones that are more like contentious. But that game like both reviewed well and sold well because the people that embraced it for what it was, like the series' first true like action, like action entry. It was like. Those are the people I really buy. Like, obviously, it has some problems. It's a little too long, and I wish it had like more variety. A little more depth and a little bit more variety. But like, the story really resonated with me. I think.
Oh, it was so
like
good.
It was like you and I both cried at the ending. Like I think I saw because too. I was like, that was a really emotionally powerful game. Probably one of my favorites of that. It was my favorite game of that year, and though the best game, like agreed upon by me and Paul, was probably between Zelda and Armored Core 6. Yeah. So it was like, but yeah, 16 like really stuck with me, and I can't wait for the final DLC piece that launches later this spring. But like the remake, probably because you still have not played remake, right?
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
No,
so
I was actually going to ask you about it while you were on it earlier. I was going to say, so let's say,
yeah, as I asked you about Yakuza, now like. Well, flipping the tables. Now you can ask me.
So
like,
you mentioned my tweet earlier. So let's say hypothetically, I'm the listener. I want to play this new Final Fantasy 7 game, the Rebirth game, because it looks good and Tifa looks good, and I want to just jump in the game or whatever. I don't know, right? Let's say I just want to play it, but I don't want to go through and play all of the other Final Fantasy games. What games do I actually need to play before I can play this game?
Yeah, just for like prep, probably remake. Just remake alone like would be like the one. And the thing is that play remake, but then look a recap of what happened in the original Final Fantasy 7, like the old PS1 one, and a recap of what happened with Crisis Core, which was the PSP spin-off that was a prequel to the original. That's
I always thought that was a movie, but I know exactly which one you're talking about then, because it's the one with Zach and everything.
Yes, exactly that one. Like you would probably think of Advent Children. That's the movie. So and that movie sucks. So, but
it was just in theaters again.
Yeah, because it's like it's such a visually amazing movie. It's like it's a movie you have to go see for like the spectacle of like how wild it gets, because that movie is kind of like what Square Enix has wanted Final Fantasy Combat to be, and 16 is probably the closest they've gotten to making playing the combat feel like Advent Children. Even though when you look at the remake project, you feel like you're watching Advent Children. Even though the combat is like this amalgamation of button mashy and turn based. Because it's like to succeed on like Final Fantasy 16 that you're just like wailing and doing combos and all of that. Like you're attacking enemies on 7 remake and also in Rebirth to build up your ATB meter to do your like turn-based attacks. And then and then kind of like you have to like really strike. It's not a game where you just kind of like win just by pressing square. You do that, you're toast. Like there is strategies. It's like you actually switch to party members. You have to fill up their ATV meters, and when your ATV meter is full, that's when you can either use items. That's when you can attack. That's when you can use like spells. So you have to like really analyze. Okay, I have my, let's say Aerith. Now has her too. Is like, do I want to use her magic to attack this like robot whose weakness I know is lightning? Oh crap, Cloud has low health, and I have good and I have good. So what do I do first? So that you have to like think on the fly when you're there, even though you're still like active. And it's like the opposite side of like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, where you just like select the commands and let the things play out. You're actively like attacking in that to fill up your meter, but then like when you enter the command menu, the game freezes like in slow mo. For you to kind of like to kind of see, so it's like it's an interesting reverse of seeing like these two games, and I like how that system like allows the identity of the series to exist in some way, because it's all about strategy and knowing like what's the best attack for the enemies, while bringing in the people that want something like more actiony. And the new one, Rebirth, because I played the demo, they're like smartly building up on that system, that both sides of the combat system are kind of like being like brought up more, so that like action fans can still feel like they have a really cool action game, but while people that want to strategize and know that how to strategize have even more options with combination of attacks with like different with the different teammates, swapping teammates in and out, making like different different kind of like team combinations. So it's like I can't wait to see like how that plays out in like the full game. But kind of why I was mentioning why you need to know about kind of like what happened in the original Final Fantasy 7 is because this remake project is the rebuild of Evangelion of the Final Fantasy universe.
Yeah, I know that.
Yes.
So I actually know the story of 7 Rebirth, and I know the story of 7 because, like I said, I've watched my dad play through all of
exactly. So that if you remember at least if you remember the big plot points, like obviously everyone that knows Final Fantasy 7 knows what those are. At least with that knowledge, you can then start playing remake, so that then when things start getting weird in that remake, where you're like, wait a second,
things are changing, history's being rewritten. Yeah, that's what leads to the end of the game and goes to Rebirth. Got it. Okay.
Exactly. So it's like there's less. Let's just say there's less homework, basically.
So I have a theory for you about Rebirth.
Say it.
So I haven't, like I said, I haven't played all of them right. I still, oh hell, I own Final Fantasy VII still on original hardware, and I still yet to play it. I own it on Steam even.
Yeah.
I still yet to play it. It is on my list of this year. I will beat it, and I will let you know if I like it.
Yeah.
I will also go back and play 6 again just to make sure it's still my favorite. Anyways, here's my theory. Here's my theory. There was one thing specifically everybody expected to happen in the remake that didn't happen in the remake, but happened in the original. I think it was a fake out that it didn't happen in the remake, and I think Aerith dies this game. And I think it's going to catch everyone off guard again. Yeah. And I think if they did that, you got to admit that would be fucking cool.
Yeah,
because no one would expect it now.
Yeah.
And they got him again. Like they get everybody
because
again.
here's what's interesting, like that you mentioned that. Like obviously people like Aerith, what happens to Aerith is the Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father of like spoiler levels, basically. It's like it wasn't
everybody freaking knows Aerith died by Sephiroth.
Yes.
Everybody have seen it. Yes.
Exactly.
If you don't know that already, I'm sorry. Travel back 20 years and play the game.
Yes, and also it was in the front page of the New York Times. Recently, so it's like
literally everybody knows it. Literally everybody knows it.
Yeah. What's interesting about remake is that like because how they divide it is that if you play remake, they basically like put the Midgar section of the original game, like when you're like in the futuristic city.
Yeah.
That's like a 3 to 5 hour section in the original game. They made it a full game in the remake. And then by the time that you're supposed to get out of Midgar, something weird happens where like the timeline starts kind of like collapsing, and then you start getting flash forwards of what happens later in the story. And then you're being told, be like, we're like defying fate right now, because it's like throughout the entire like Final Fantasy VII remake, you meet like these ghosts that are called like the Whispers of Fate that look like Dementors. And what's interesting about them is that they're trying to make sure that everything like
stays on the timeline.
Yeah, so it's like so it's like Jessie, like one of the girls that helped you like with the bombing. It's like she didn't get injured at the beginning, so the ghost intervenes, so she gets injured so that she doesn't go into the second bombing reactors. It's like they're trying to keep everything kind of like in line. It's kind of like meta commentary, and then at the end you're basically fighting fate, and you see like literally all the big moments of like the original game, like
Final Fantasy bullshit.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like classic Nomura. But even though that's what's funny is like a lot of people love blaming Tetsuya Nomura and all the bullshit. It's a different writer that always he just enables it because he nails it. Everyone's like, that's Nomura bullshit. But so you see all the big moment, the big story moments that should happen later in the story, and say you'll be like, now it's the unknown journey. So it's basically be like, okay, you know what the story is. Now the story can go anywhere. That's kind of like what they've been like teasing what Rebirth will be. Even though Rebirth still hits a lot of the big moments that happen in the original. If you look at the trailers, they hit a lot of like the big scenarios that you hit. And so it's like a lot of those things are still going to happen, but because of the seeds that they've laid out, it's just not like a straight recreation of the story. So it's not like now you had that uncertainty, be like, yeah, I may visit all these places. Will everything play out the same way? And obviously there's a third part that they already announced 2 years ago. They're making this a trilogy basically. So I really wonder if the big moment is where that thing will end. And also like some of the things that they've added that I don't want to spoil kind of converge there, and that's what makes this has added more anticipation to this project than just a straight up remake. Because if this was just like a retelling and be like, you're just like taking a long time to just tell the story that I can go that I can go to YouTube.
Which is actually, I remember we were in the same dorm at the time they announced this series. They announced the trilogy of the remakes while we were living in the same dorm, and I remember commenting to you, why are they making 3 games out of this?
Yes.
So that checks out now. Okay.
So and in a way, that's why like that this has been so anticipated. Obviously, you probably see that the internet has been ablaze. Like they're like high anticipation after the demo popped up, like the recent state of play. Obviously, all the thirsting that's happening because
lots of that, man. Lots of that. I've been seeing a mix of that with the AI sent gaming thing, and so many memes of people like PS5 players when Tifa shows up on screen.
Oh yes, I saw that one.
I'm like, oh my lord.
Yes,
people are.
No, but I think like try to look up the clip of Red 13, the dog with the fire tail, trying to compliment Tifa and Aerith when they just like go out on her on her bikini, on her bathing suit. Is the funniest thing, and it's even funnier because it's like coming from Red 13 that is like this dog looking kind of like getting horny for these girls. It's so weird. But that's the thing, that they're really embracing a lot of like the anime kind of fan service stuff. Like,
yeah, they just saw what Nier Automata did, and they're like, "Oh, I want more of that." Like, bring that over here, man.
Yes, but yeah, I can't wait. Like, I really can't wait to play this. Like, it's been like, it's rare. Like, the games that I highly anticipate are so few and far between. This was one of them, and I just can't wait to see how they like nail it, and then how long will it be before they like close up this trilogy. But I'm kind of like, the good thing is that Square Enix now has been like really good, like in recent time, because how often we're told that Square Enix was like just shitting the bed. They were like 15. Like, I enjoy it as a bad game that I enjoyed, but that was not a good game. Like, that took forever to come out. Like, the 13 trilogy was not well received. They took forever to bring back Dragon Quest for you. They were like doing all this stuff. So it's like, how long do you wait for a Dragon Quest 11 before it finally hit?
Yeah, a very long time. See you again in 2035.
Yeah, with 12.
Yeah, with 12. Hey, maybe the fucking NES game remake that they've been working on for 1,000 days will finally come out in another 1,000 days.
God, I forgot that's still happening. The remake, like the remake.
It has been over 1,000 days now. It is a NES remake. It is not a 3D game. They are keeping it 2D sprites. It has been in works for 1,000 days. Dog, I know indie developers of one person, an entire one-person team that would crank out that game in a year or two. What the hell are they doing, dude?
Yeah. Oh yeah, but I definitely, especially you that you have a PC, PJ, I would recommend you play like remake. I don't think it's perfect, because it's like when you try to stretch a 3 to 5 hour original section of a game into like a full-on RPG, obviously you're gonna see, if you know what the story is, you're gonna see like the ways that they've extended it. But kind of similar to how I feel about 16 is like 16 had its lulls, but when it hit.
Yeah, no, I want to play. I want to play remake. I actually just bought it on Steam the other day.
It's such a good. It's good.
Well,
on Steam.
It's because I bought a Steam Deck OLED the other day.
It works really good on Steam Deck OLED, I've heard. So.
Yeah, so I need more games to play on it, because I'm gonna play more of the Yakuza games again on it. But I'm looking for some other games to play, and it's like, I may as well do that. So
yeah, do that one, and then if you have the time, do Crisis Core. If that's a short game, like that's a 10 to 12 hour game. Oh really? If you want to see that, yeah. But you can see the cutscenes if you want, like at least know what happens.
I honestly may watch something, because from the gameplay loop I've seen in Crisis Core, it doesn't really look like my kind of game.
It's more, that one's more actiony. There's like not much strategy, like at least with remake, that is like you at least have to build up your ATV. To at least
Which is funny coming from somebody who likes the Yakuza series. Yeah. But I had a talk with somebody about this yesterday. I don't like beat 'em ups. Yakuza is my
exception. Yeah.
Is my exception.
That's what's funny. Like you're always gonna find exceptions. Like to me, like the old school Final Fantasies were like my breakthroughs at relearning to love turn-based. Because remember, I had a tough time like reacclimating myself to turn-based, and now I'm like more open-minded to it. And I'm glad, because it's like there's a level of satisfaction to do that sometimes. And it's pretty chill to play a turn-based game while you're laying in bed.
You know, honestly, I know, right? Dude, I've been screaming from the top of the mountain. I was like, if you're going to play Dragon Quest, don't look at it as the next AAA game. Look at it as your new favorite bedtime for the next year. It's a bedtime story. You should play it a little, like maybe 2 hours before bed, you know, an hour or two before bed. Enjoy it in bed, hang out, go to bed, wake up, get excited that you have something to look forward to the next day. It's a great way to digest those stories and gameplay.
Yeah, so I'll definitely in next week's episode when Paul joins in, I'm definitely going to talk more about Rebirth, because I will have played at least a week of that, and
definitely the good person to talk to about it, because you would be talking to a brick wall with me about it. Like, I have
because at least Paul will be playing it. It's one of the things that he would definitely wants to play, and he's slowly being like getting more and more excited, because he's one of the weirdos that he only really loved Midgar in the original game and didn't really like anything else. But I'm like, understanding that the only thing he experienced before playing the original was Crisis Core. That was very Midgar-centric, or very kind of like futuristic-centric. And he had already played Kingdom Hearts and all that. When you play PS2 stuff and go back to PS1 stuff, the parts that are like, that in 1997 blew people away, being like, oh my god, there's more than just Midgar. It's not just this. All this like big world, what is it? And at the time where it's still like, your imaginations could fill up the details instead of like games filling that imagination for you. Now that imagination is like all the details you see now in the new one. So it's like a realization of all those dreams. It feels like a dream game for people that are like fans of of the 7 sub-series. Like, I'm still the one that says, like, that's my third favorite game in the series. I like 6 and 4 better myself, but it's like, it's still a top 3
really?
one.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I like it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, 4's story blew my mind. Like, I was, like, shocked how dark this story was, and how great Cecile was as a main character. So...
Was that the game with the mage?
That's the mage that dies after he casts Meteor. Yeah, he's the one that you play as a Black Knight that turns into a Paladin.
Yeah.
Like he redeems
Yeah,
himself.
okay. Yeah, that one was cool.
Yeah, I really love, like, and those were 2 and 3 originally on the SNES. So, you know what we've been playing, PJ? We gotta, like, enter some interesting sad news. Press X for some news. And also that. So, and now, like, layoffs are still happening, unfortunately. So it's like, I was just gonna talk about the one that happened yesterday, but just this one happened. I'm gonna read the story by Game Informer's Marcus Stewart. EA lays off 670 employees, cancels Respawn's Star Wars FPS, which is so funny. Last week we talked about this game, that it was gonna be a Mandalorian. Really? Yeah, because it had leaked that it was gonna be a Mandalorian FPS by Respawn, the Titanfall guys. Now it's canceled. So EA is laying off 5% of...
an awkward time to get Paul back. Be like, yes. Hey, actually, about that game.
No, he's the one that sent me the story before we started recording. He's like, he's like on a stupor right now because he's a big Star Wars fan, and it's like, and it's like another one like got away. So yeah, EA is laying off 5% of their workforce, which accounts to 670 employees. And they say that they're restructuring to become more streamlined in order to deliver deeper, more connected experiences for fans everywhere that build community, shape culture, and grow fandom. And they're also sunsetting games and moving away from development of future licensed IP. So no more like, we're doing a game based on the brand and all that, even though they're still working on a few.
What the hell is EA even going to do? That's all they do now.
Right? Yeah, that's what I thought. It was like, original IP, you barely have anything, because it's like
nothing.
Yeah, Dead Space is technically them. They brought that back in Dead Space, and the Dead Space remake was good.
What is Blood waffling about right now? Like, original IPs. Are they gonna remake Dead Space 2? That'd be great.
Then what else?
They could attempt to remake and redo Dead Space 3. That'd be cool.
Yeah,
I would not
make it right.
See a remake.
Don't make it right.
Dead Space 3, just redo Dead Space 3. That'd be good.
Yeah, especially like do it the way you did Dead Space 1 and 2. So, and it's ironic because we are adding this 670 people laid off to this whole list that I gave you the tweet by Mr. Pio, where he tweets, "We're 2 months into 2024, and here is a list of a lot of some layoffs that happened gaming wise." So, Microsoft laid out 1,900 people. Sony yesterday laid off 900 people, and they're laying off people, like, just as an aside with Sony, they're laying people off from Insomniac, the studio that crazy, they're the ones that have been putting out games for the PS5.
They're like Spider-Man 2. Recommended for Game of the Year. We're laying off people.
Yes, and they sold 10 million copies, the fastest selling PlayStation game. How they're rewarded? They're laying people off. It's so wild. And they're closing London studio also. So they're even closing one of their longest running like studios that made like iToy from PS2. Do you remember like iToy from back in the day?
I do remember iToy. That was PS2.
Yeah, PS2. So it was like an old studio that used to give them some flavor, and they were doing some VR games. They have PSVR 2. They're not supporting it. They're canning the studio that made their best VR games like in-house. So it's like, that tells me PSVR 2 is basically that, if they're not going to be like supporting it. So leak all around. Then we have Unity that laid off 1,800 people, especially after the whole kerfuffle that happened last year. Do you hear about that? That they wanted to charge developers like a fee per game they sold. It was like a huge shit show. So it was like they had to go through that and then still lay people off. Twitch laid off 500 people. Riot Games laid off 530 people. Discord laid off 170 people. Playtika, I don't know what that is. It laid off 300 to 400 people. Lost Boys Interactive, 125. Pixelberry Studios, 120. Metaverse World, 70. Black Forest Games, 50. Rycon Games, 60. Eidos Montreal, 97 people. Which, by the way, Eidos Montreal, they're the Deus Ex people, and they that basically canceled that in development Deus Ex game they had there. Sega laid off 61 people, and I think that was mostly the Sega of America side.
Yeah.
not the.
I think it was I don't think it was developers for that one, was
Yeah,
it?
it was.
I thought that was mostly like marketing and stuff.
Yeah, it was a marketing and PR team. They got canned.
Yeah.
91 Act got laid off 60 people. Supermassive Games laid off 90 people, and I know Don Nod or no Deck 9 Deck 19, the guys that made Life is Strange Beyond the Storm, they laid off 20% yesterday also. So it's like the tweet says there are more than this, but you get the point. Something is happening in gaming right now. And PJ, we're kind of like talking behind the scenes that you don't have to disclose the job you're in, but kind of like the job you're kind of
in tech. Yeah, I mean,
you're in tech, and that's still like everywhere.
I do cybersecurity. I don't mind saying what I do for a living. I just don't want to say where
which
my
one?
job is located. Yeah, but cybersecurity is getting a lot of layoffs. Tech's getting a lot of layoffs. Marketing layoffs are just always consistently a thing. Also, at the beginning of the year in America, right, in the U.S. or at least Western culture,
because of fiscal year. Because the fiscal year technically ends February, March. Like the fourth quarter.
And then they reevaluate and then they lay off. And so layoffs aren't uncommon. It is definitely way more prevalent now in the artistic fields or creative fields than it has been in a very long time. And gaming is hit very hard because of that. So yeah,
I know a lot of people are saying that a lot of these layoffs are happening, especially because 200,000 to 250,000 like jobs were created during COVID, like during 2020, 2021, because it's like revenues were skyrocketing around that time because everyone was locked in. It was like because everyone was locked in, they needed something to do, and some of these companies needed to adapt to like a more efficient work environment, and they couldn't just do it with the people they had. That's why they started like hiring a lot of people and all of that, because it was like revenue was through the roof, and now that reality is reality, like that revenue started like coming down because people are going out and all that. So it's like a lot of that is redundancy, but it's still pretty shitty because it's like
it is
because it's like every week and
people's jobs. So like it's not cool regardless.
And obviously inflation is a thing. Like obviously, like how expensive is buying some eggs right now at the supermarket? It's like inflation is like ridiculous. That because we hear like the worst part is like a lot of the companies that I read from that tweet, they posted record earnings this last year, but apparently their profits were like so thin because of inflation that it's like economy's gonna pop.
Inflation. Last time I was on this podcast, I owned a house. I owned a 5-bedroom house. My current apartment I am in a neighboring city, its rent is like almost double what my mortgage was for a 5-bedroom house 3 years ago.
Oh man, I remember that house in Tulsa.
So it absolutely, and it's not like I'm in a like really nice apartment downtown of my city or anything like that. Like I'm not like living well above my means by any means. It's a nice place, but it's not like, it's not the location that makes it really expensive, right? So it's just expensive.
Imagine if you were living in California. Can you imagine that? Oof.
Nope. Yeah. Rest in peace. Like honestly, and like all respects to the people who lost their jobs. It's a terrible thing to go through. It's not a fun thing to have happen. It's scary too. Because imagine if you're living in LA or you're living in California or Dallas or some of these other places that are really big tech industries, right? That have a really high
and a lot of
cost of living.
And a lot of these people are working there. Yeah,
and you get laid off. It's terrifying because like if you're a game developer, where do you go? Where everywhere you turn, there's layoffs.
It's like that's the kind of like the saddest thing, because we're kind of talking about like the Japanese supremacy of things that
at least it's gaming.
At least in gaming is like they're the ones that you don't hear the layoff conversation as often. Maybe it's because we don't have actual correspondents in Japan that get to report that as often. Maybe they're actually happening, we don't even know.
They would, absolutely. Yeah, we get news about Square Enix stuff all the time.
Yeah,
like,
because they always say them. They always put a press release for that.
Yeah, like people will post things in full Japanese on Twitter, and then somebody will see it and they're like, holy shit, this company in Japan just laid off like 500 people. Hell, the very small team that made Pow World, like
they're Japanese,
if they laid off 2 people, we would know. Like that's like that. I feel like that's how much like we have eyes on things nowadays.
And it
doesn't happen.
Yeah, it's just so wild because I think about like up and coming developers, the ones that are in Full Sail University, or like people are like starting to get into the industries. Like it just doesn't feel like you're gonna enter an industry where you're gonna keep a job even for more than a year, at least where things are in, because games have now become so darn expensive. Like, do you hear about the Insomniac leak that that ransomware that leaked a bunch of info.
I know more than just
yes, because you have an idea who did it, right?
No, I don't have an idea. I know.
Yeah, who did?
I know who did it. I have connections with, not connections as in like the team don't come at me. I work in cybersecurity. I also work with digital forensics. I help people when they are ransomware and when they are breached. I helped a company that was breached by these same people who breached Insomniac, but just months prior. And so I was very familiar with their tactics, what they did, how they got in, etc., because they did the exact same thing to Insomniac as they did to the company that
which is wild, and how they crippled Insomniac by releasing literally their decades-long plans and revealing the budgets of games. Where when people saw that Spider-Man 2 cost $385 million to make, everyone was like, suddenly a lot of people really turned around on like what their opinion of that game was, because they were like, wait a second, that cost that much and it didn't look that different from the game from 2018. What the frick is happening with costs? Because and when you don't even see like that money's like on the screen, that it, like I would believe like a GTA 6, like if they told me it had a budget of $1 billion, I look at that game and I'm like, yeah, I believe you. You can kind of see it. You look at Spider-Man and you're like, I showed it to my dad. I was playing. Let me show you Spider-Man 2. When he looked at it, the first thing he told me was like, "What was those hideous faces?" That's the first thing he told me. And then when I started swinging around, I was like, "Oh yeah, it's like the last one." And then he just stood up and walked away. And I was like, "Wow,
exactly. It's just like the last one.
Exactly,
just more story."
Exactly. So I'm like, wow, that really like says a lot of like how irresponsible it is that these games are like being budgeted at this level, that you have to like sell that much to maybe break even and even attempt a profit. They had to like sell, the break even point was like 8 million copies. They got to sell at 10 million. You cannot like bet like profitability having to reach those high numbers. It's like that those are the kind of things that made me scared about where high fidelity gaming is at right now, because I'm like, is it really worth it? Like when we think about like high fidelity, it's like, oh yeah, let me show you the wrinkles in the faces of someone, or this girl has the peach fuzz, or things like that. It's like, is that really worth like the extra year, or like the extra like money that they're pumping into this thing, when the things that are like super successful right now are $40 games that are more about fun and gameplay, aka Pal World, aka Helldivers 2. I don't know if you've been hearing that Helldivers 2 has been like it's like for a game from Sony that doesn't look at all like their AAA products, but it's been like more like champion than their more recent stuff that like take forever to make, because it's like, it's not attempting to be HBO wannabe prestige third person action pretentious action. That's what it is. I like those games, but that's exactly what they are. And I realize that gaming can be more than just trying to like mimic Hollywood and pursuing the Hollywood of it all. Now it's like leading to this bloat when it comes to budgets. And I feel we're entering the 1950s to 1960s kind of like old Hollywood to new Hollywood crash. That is like at a certain point, like everything became unsustainable, and they had to like bring everything down and like readjust.
Yeah, they had to rethink everything.
And through that rethink, we got Star Wars, because it's kind of like through those rethinks, it's like creativity like won out at the time. Obviously, like it feels like the film industry is gaining again closer to like bloated budgets again, but it's like it feels like economy eventually like balances out again. And I feel like right now, as things are getting balanced out, it's gonna be rough for a lot of those developers. They're gonna bear the brunt of the market changing. And
it's sad too. And a lot of these games I feel like have an over budget just because they want to get a game out so fast to like meet their expectations, right? But I feel like fast development cycle, like there's nothing wrong with wanting to get it out at a good time, but I feel like pushing too hard, but like a new game needs to come out in 2 or 3 years, I feel like is really hurting. Because you could save money, push the game off for a couple years, and then do more games that way, rather than actually like try to just push out a game every 2 years.
I know the big budget bloat happens if a game is like more in development, like 5 to 6 years out. So it's like because it stays in development, and I know like trying to do like maybe a game and that a sequel can come out in like 1 or 2 years, because a lot of the work has been done. I was hearing, it was so fun, a lot of people are asking the Yakuza team, they're like, how are you able to like put out this many Yakuza games compared to the others? They were like, we're using the same city. It was like, we're just building like
8 doesn't though.
8 is the first one that they changed. It took them until 8 to change.
Like, well, all right. there are 4 cities in all of the Yakuza games that you play in, not including 7 and 8. So it's not just one city, but a lot of it takes place in one city. There are 4 cities.
Yeah, and then they built up, like, you return to those same cities, like, from game to game, from what I understand. Kind of like the beauty of, like, is like the familiarity of, like, revisiting stuff that you have played before, because it's like both can be both nostalgic, and it's kind of like that's real life. Like, a city's a city, and then it's kind of like how they creatively use the same space should theoretically make you like achieve, like it should make like making more games within the same framework cheaper. That's why a lot of people were like dumbfounded about Spider-Man 2 like costing that much, because it's like it's the same city with just 2 added boroughs. It's like, how do you like cost 385 million?
It's got to be a mix of like advertisement and a mix of like people working on it.
And also license fee. And also license fees.
That too. Spider-Man is also very expensive.
Yeah, especially like they're having to pay Disney. I think that's why EA were saying that they're moving away from like license stuff, because they know that there's a huge license fee that they still have to pay like royalties for what they sell, and then it's like, what do we get ourselves? It's like, that's why I'm so against licensed games. Like, there's been like a lot of like announced licensing, and I'm like, can we get like at least more like game series instead of just like a entry of like a movie and all that? I know there's like familiarity and all that, but it's like, I knew that was kind of like the problem of doing that, and I just hope they readjust, because it's like it's so sad, like we're getting so many good games right now, but it's like, will we get them in 2 or 3 years if we're losing the people who are making them? That's like that's kind of like what's scary. And I wonder if Nintendo has been like really thinking about that as they transition over to Switch 2, which is like a segue. Nintendo Switch 2, Parker, officially coming 2025, according to a report by Nikkei, which is kind of like a one that's in the know about tech over there in Japan, and they're reporting that was originally targeting 2020, like late 2024 launch, but internally was pushed to the first quarter of 2025. And according to that was because they wanted the software available at launch to be like at least more robust, so that it's not the what happened with the Switch when it was just basically sold and like 2 or 3 other games, like smaller games, but they have more like a robust and also
and the Wii U and the and the Wii and all the other consoles and the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One and the PS5 and the PS4 and every console that I've ever fucking released that has only like 3 games at launch, and only one of them is a mandatory game. Like
and the other ones are and the other ones are just there because it's basically if you want to play other stuff, here's what it is. And they want a robust software lineup, and they also don't want to have a stock shortage, similar to the PS5 and the Series X that were so damn hard to find within their first year. Remember,
speaking of that, of the first year for that, do you remember Bomberman Z?
Yes, for Switch.
Did you know they made a sequel to that?
Yes,
game?
Super Bomberman Z.
They made a sequel to that game, and the development team and the owner of that series came out saying that it really underperformed, and they were confused why it would underperform. I don't know. Maybe your original game was a fucking launch title on this.
Yes.
There's only 2 games to play.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Like even a bad game or good game is gonna sell the same, because it's like the only thing available. So it's like you cannot. It's like you cannot read that as like actual demand. So the same thing happened with the stupid game from PS4, Knack. That's so well, because it's like, what else were you gonna buy on PS4?
So of course they had to make a sequel.
And Knack 2 bombed.
Hey, rest in peace, Rise.
Yes. Rise Son of Rome. Oh yeah, Rise on the prettiest 900p game of all time. I remember. Yeah, it was like, even though it was like, it has like lower resolution at 1080p, but it was like prettier than most games that were in 1080p. But a lot of people wanted to make fun of it, but it would be 900p. But so officially, PJ, now we have the not death date of the Switch, but now when we're officially gonna see.
We know. We know we're getting the Switch.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of leaks, I think it was pretty obvious that we're getting a Switch 2 either this year or next year. Like it was
8 years.
Pretty damn obvious.
Yeah, it was. It's gonna be like, this was 7 years and March 3rd. So it's like that's basically that was the lifeline. That was kind of like the lifespan of the PS4. 7 years. And usually I always
actually outlived the majority of consoles. Like
going for 8. The only console that's similar, that's the lasted that long, was the 360, 2005 to 2013, and that was just because it got delayed because they wanted that thing out in 2012. So now that we look, good thing I have you here, because obviously you play a lot of the things on Switch. Obviously you also play on PC and all that, but you made your bones more like creating a lot of content for Nintendo.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah,
looking
Nintendo, Sega, stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah, so you were more kind of like in that bank. I'm more like agnostic. I play on all three, but I like having conversations, deep conversation on individual ones. Would you say, like, how would you rate the Switch era from 2017 to now?
Man.
Like,
So like rated as in like how well the Switch
yes,
was as a
yes,
console?
yeah, and also compared to other Nintendo eras for you.
Oh
Like,
man. Okay, so here's just the reality of it. It's an
mhm,
S tier console. Like it was so good for Nintendo. The amount of
mhm,
games that came out
yeah.
on it, everything that came out on it was so good. It's not my favorite Nintendo console because I'm incredibly biased, right? To
Which one's your favorite? I don't want to hear it. Oh.
GameCube, absolutely.
Yes,
GameCube,
yeah, that's mine. Yeah, GameCube's
like,
GameCube's gold for me.
yeah, GameCube, N64, and then the Wii.
Mhm.
And the only reason why GameCube was so good to me is that some of those exclusive games on the GameCube were just so good. And now I will say, with Thousand Year Door finally coming to the Switch, and the Switch now having a remake of Mario RPG, there is a damn good chance this becomes my favorite. There's a very damn good
because
chance.
now like a lot of those great games that we love from that era are basically here. So we're only
Dude, I am a major Mario RPG fan. Probably my favorite RPG game.
Yeah. By the way, people, he beat it the first day that it came out, right?
In one sitting.
In one sitting.
Dude, I 100%ed that game. I 100%. I beat all the extra bosses. I beat the Final Fantasy spin-off boss twice. I beat everything. I did everything. I did it in 24 hours, dog. I played that game hard. Yeah, I think that remake was perfect. I think it was everything I ever wanted from a remake of that game, and everything I see about Thousand Year Door seems like it's going to be phenomenal too.
Yeah,
So
I can't wait because I love A Thousand Year Door. That was my first Paper Mario because I didn't own the Paper Mario from N64, and I'm gonna try to do, because it's on Switch Online, I'm gonna do that one and Thousand Year Door back to back, and then it's like,
oh, dude, you're gonna love Paper Mario. If you love interactive turn-based stuff, you're gonna love
that. Was my favorite. It was like that back then when I was like not patient enough to just like select command, wait things to come out. I really loved the select jump attack. Jump and then press A and then press it again to like do the double attack.
It's something so minor, but it changes everything. Like having some sort of interaction there. But yeah, Switch 2. So we know the Switch 2 is coming. I think the Switch's era was phenomenal. There's so many people who came back to gaming during COVID because of the Switch.
Yeah.
And there's so many people I know who didn't care much for gaming, or they just forgot about gaming for a long time. Jordan included. Jordan was one of them.
Yeah, because he didn't have a Wii U, right? Yeah, remember he didn't have a Wii U. He stopped at the Wii. I stopped at the Wii also, and I think probably the thing that because I've been looking at a lot of the sales figures for like the
me
Switch.
And 3 other people held out that Wii U hard.
Yes,
we did a good job.
Yeah, you let me borrow it for Breath of the Wild back in 2017 because there was like we didn't have a Switch at the launch, but probably the thing that impressed me most about the Switch is how it made so many franchises for Nintendo like blockbuster like level, like how much it sold, because it's like obviously series like Metroid and Smash always had a fervor to them. But when you looked at the sales figure, they were always like more in the niche side. So it was just kind of like the fans were really loud about it. And then when you see the sales figures of those games now, you're like, Ultimate.
Everything.
Everything. Yeah. They had 21 exclusives that sold 10 million and up. And a few of those sold 20 million, a few other 30 million, Animal Crossing 40 million. Yeah. And then Pokemon was the one that actually,
The Pokemon game, is like the new Scarlet Violet Pokemon game, isn't even good. And it
sold that much. Yeah. And technically, and that one did sell less than Sword and what was the 2019 one? Sword and
no,
Sword
I think
Shield.
No, it beat it.
Did it beat it?
It's the most. Yeah, it's I'm like 99.999% sure I saw that it beat it.
I can look it up because I had the I actually screenshotted it because I was actually talking with another friend that he's so very anti Nintendo. He was saying that the Switch sold a lot but didn't resonate a lot, and I'm like, you cannot say that the Switch didn't resonate when you have that many when you have those kinds of sales figures, because like
10 million Statista is not correct. Yeah. So because they put blue and they put blue and green as the most selling game. Hold on.
Yeah. Let me look. I'm pulling it up. So because I had it's Brilliant Diamond. No, that's not that. So let me So Sword and Shield sold 26.17 million, and Scarlet and Violet 24.36.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay, it's catching up.
Yeah, it's definitely catching up, but definitely that I could imagine that'd be even higher with better word of mouth if it was actually like a better game instead of like
game.
Which by the way, like we didn't even talk about because it was like they only announced the CA Arceus game like at the event, right? That was kind of like the big thing that they announced at the Pokemon event this week. It was interesting, and I'm excited that it's not out this year. I'm glad that because it's like they're giving them time. Finally, it's like
somebody take Game Freak out of the kitchen. Don't let them cook. Tell them to go to cooking school first. We need to send them to learn how to make a game first, and then put them back in the kitchen. Don't put a game out every 2 years. Dear God.
Or every year, or 3 games in the same year. Like what happened with Arceus and Scarlet and Violet the same year. It was like. Of course, that ended up happening because it's like this is not the GBA era where you can like pump those things like it's breakfast or something. So it's like at least I'm glad that it seemed like they got the memo that it's like no, you gotta do better. It's like you cannot just be releasing this stuff even though it's kind of selling. So it's like I am really curious.
You say that, but watch the beginning of next year once we actually get a Switch 2, and they're like, "Hey, guess what? We have Legends Arceus or Legends ZA or Legends, whatever comes out middle of this year, and a new Gen 10 later this year." Everyone will be
you're gonna see a lot of people gonna be like, "Yay!" and then the game's gonna be like all broken, and they were gonna be back at the cycle. So, do you think there's gonna be a 3D Mario at launch, like
a 3D Mario at launch? Oh man, that's a tough. So at launch, no.
Really?
Do I think there's going to be a 3D Mario game? There's no way there's not. There's literally no way there's not. There's gonna be one.
Last one we got was Bowser's Fury in technicality. So.
And so my crazy predicament of a launch game, maybe not launch game, but considered
window kind of
launch window is literally Metroid Prime 4. I'm holding out hope on that shit.
Actually, I believe it because it's like that game got restarted. That has been in development, so that would be the time.
It has been in development, I believe, or the remake of the development has been 5 years now.
Yeah, because they restarted in 2019.
Yeah,
because
it like the window for that to like matches perfectly with the Switch 2, and the leaks that I've been seeing about it is all been consistent. Everyone says the different bullshit, but there's one thing that's been consistent. They have said that the team that has been working on the game apparently was having a hard time developing it on the Switch.
Really?
So they were waiting for the new console.
Yeah, so I can imagine. Yeah, especially if they want to like pursue like half of that. That was the most impressive thing about the remastered. How good it looked.
It looks great.
Yeah,
I feel like if they do Metro Prime 4, it's gonna go in the Tears of the Kingdom, like Breath of the Wild direction, where they're not just gonna be the same engine as the remake. I feel like that they're actually going to want to do something like drastically different and new, but still keep the Metroid Prime feel. I feel like that's what they're gonna try to do with this game.
Yeah, and I would hope that maybe 2 and 3, at least in remaster form, also show up. Like even if they don't have like the work of the of the original one, I'd be like at least just put like an Operas. I would love to have like the entire Prime like games like just in one system, especially them making it work with the double sticks.
Wii U rocked, dog. Wii U rocked. Got all the Prime games on the Wii U there.
Yeah, and for like $20, you know, like with like the digital one, and
super good.
Mario Kart 9. Do you think it could like
absolutely?
Yeah, that would be the time, right?
There's no way in hell we're not getting Mario Kart 9 the first year of the Switch 2. There's no way. But we've been waiting for Mario Kart 9 for so long.
Yeah, for a decade. It's been a decade since 8 came out in Wii U. Can you believe that?
GTA 5 and Mario Kart 8 are the like longest lasting fucking games ever. Because whenever I was in early high school, everyone was talking about Mario Kart 8 and GTA 5. Now we're talking about Mario Kart 8 and GTA 5 still.
Wild, right? Yeah.
Dude, I have 3 college degrees and I've graduated high school since then. And I'm still playing on the same game.
Yeah, and now I'm 30. It's so wild that it's not the way I got in a sequel of those.
Oh man, it's wild. Yeah, I don't even care. Yeah, 9 has to happen. 8 is like 8 Deluxe, isn't it? Like the most selling game on the Switch. 60 million and plus. It's like not even close.
Yeah, it beat the Wii one that topped at like 40 million. So it's like Mario Kart is just like so big, and what they did with adding the new maps and all that really like.
It was smart.
It was smart, and that really like kept that game alive. My sister became like a pro. She beats my ass in those games.
I still don't own that game. It's been years. I still don't own that game.
That's wild.
I played it on the Wii U, and I'm such a hard ass. I played that game for 100 hours plus on the Wii U, and I saw the deluxe version on the Switch. I was like, oh, I'll just play my friends' copies and wait for 9. Because in my mind, I'm like, oh, they just remade 8 because it didn't sell well on the Wii U. So they're gonna put it on the Switch. It's gonna sell well while they're developing 9. Duh.
Yeah.
And then here I am. 8 years later, it's still the Mario Kart game, but every year I tell myself, oh, I'll get this game. I'll get Mario Kart 8 Deluxe finally. And then I'm like, no, the second I buy this, Mario Kart 9 is going to get announced. No, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah,
and I've
7 years later.
For like 7-8 years. No, dude, trust me, Mario Kart 9, I'm there day one. Day one, I'm there. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, hell no, dog. I don't own that game.
Yes. So now that we know that the Switch is in 2025, and I'd be like, theoretically, any other big game that would have won working, they would want to launch there.
Yeah.
Is this the year?
Metroid Prime 4 would not be a system seller. Like, I think it would be a greatly received game, but it's not the system seller. So the question is, what is their system seller?
Yeah. I wonder, is this finally the year where Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are dusted off the shelf and they're put out as like something?
Because they're like, we got to give them something to have.
Yes,
for the next year. Yeah, because those are the last
Wii U games.
They were thinking about putting out the Switch 2 this year, according to reports, right?
Yeah.
So, and then they just recently moved it over. So if that's the case, they're probably going to be like, fuck, we need something to hold people over. So I mean, I could see it. I could see it.
And honestly, I've been hearing so many reports from the people I really trust that I've been hearing since like 2020 that they have heard that those things have been done, and like typical Nintendo fashion, they finish something, they just shelve it because kind of like what they did with Pikmin 3. That is like they had the thing done for the Switch for a while, and then they just waited until the pandemic to put something. Deluxe or whatever? Yeah, the deluxe edition. Yeah. So it's like I've been like hoping, like me and Paul, I literally woke up on the Nintendo Direct for 2022 at 6 a.m. because we had heard reports that those things were gonna be there, and they were not there. Only the name of Zelda, of Tears of the Kingdom. That it was so funny because it was like knowing that the Queen of England had just died, and the British were not like they were not airing because of that. That was still so funny, but it was like I remember being so salty because I was like,
what a great name! What a great name and great time to announce that name. Tears of the Kingdom. Tears of the Kingdom. So funny. That's so funny.
And also, what an amazing game it was. Yeah, gosh, what an amazing game! Like Tears of the Kingdom. So, yeah, I cannot wait. Like in a year from now, we will be getting close to like the release of that Switch, and let's see how Nintendo follows it up. Hopefully they don't fuck it up for trying to do something weird.
I'm gonna tell you now, I already know what this console's gonna fucking be. Everyone keeps saying like, oh my god, like they need to catch up with the with the Steam Deck and all this shit. Hell no. They would never do that. If there's one thing that Nintendo has always gone by, is taking deprecated hardware and pushing it laterally.
Yes.
Like they want to take deprecated hardware, that's old hardware, and do new things with it. That has always been their thing since day one, and they're very vocal about it.
And they maximize it. They know how to basically they like extract blood of it. Yeah, they extract blood of a stone. Yes.
Yeah, and so here's the thing that they're going to do. This is just going to be the 3DS to the DS. I guarantee you. I guarantee you. Everyone agrees, right, that this next console has to have backwards compatibility.
Yes. It will be inexcusable if they don't. That would be like that would literally destroy any momentum if that thing doesn't have backwards compatibility.
Is it just me, or do you think they're going to still use Switch cartridges, but they're going to have the little ledge on it like they did with the 3DS to the DS? Yeah. So that way the Switch cartridges can go in, but the new Switch cartridges can also go in, but the new Switch cartridges can't go in the old Switch. They're absolutely remaking those 3DS cartridges. There's no way. It's going to be the little ledge thing. I'm already calling it.
Yeah, and they definitely have to keep that because it's like the buying physical is like they are the console to do that. They're like the best ones. They're like they support physical. Like only Sony with PlayStation are the only ones that are still trying to keep that alive. Xbox has been like decided to go all digital, and that's gonna be very detrimental for them doing that because at least like it's always good to have options even if you're wanting to people to push digitally. But like
I don't think Xbox is gonna stay around as a hardware company at all. Yeah. I think
after the next one, it feels like they're on the way out.
Xbox is Sega for sure, dude. But
Mhm.
but they are a really good environment for creativity because they've been buying so many small developers and allowing developers to try new things because they're losing the race,
Mhm.
right? So they
Yeah.
have to try new things. Yeah, no, they're absolutely good. They're not. Yeah, fuck Xbox.
Yeah,
But
they're gonna.
fuck the
Yeah,
physical Xbox.
yes.
I love Xbox as a company because some of the games they put out are great, but the console
And
itself,
yeah, because you have a PC, you basically can play everything they do because that was their whole mantra. So
yeah, I mean, hell, I do have an Xbox One S because I use it for emulation. I use it for a lot of other things. I think it's a phenomenal console for that. But as a gaming console, I would like that's not for emulation and weird like hardware
It's
modding
rough.
shit that I like to do.
Yeah,
I understand. I'm in a very mind
Right.
group of people, right, that like to do that stuff on it. As a gaming console, what who cares?
Yeah.
It just,
just be on PC, especially with the PC that you built recently. So can't wait to see like what they do with like the Switch 2 because like now at least we know like a timetable, and I'm more than curious to see how Nintendo fills up this year because I know they're gonna like break a bunch of emergency glasses to just fill up.
I'm gonna hold you to this one, but I want you to make a hard guess on the Switch 2. I want you to guess 3 things, and we'll see how many things you get right.
Okay. It's
Okay.
gonna cost.
Hold on.
Right.
Regardless of that, is the form factor? The first question is the form factor going to be the same?
Yes.
No, okay, so you think yes. Okay. Number 2, do you think they stay OLED or they go LCD again?
Actually, we know that it's gonna be LCD. That's
We
a
don't
based on
know that.
report. Oh,
That was actually proven to be a not 100% factual. The entire thing.
so there's a
It
chance.
was based. There's a chance it could be OLED. It was based on early reports, apparently. And 3, what do you think is going to launch with? Like, what one game do you think is going to launch with it that's going to sell the console?
I honestly do believe they're gonna launch it with like 3D Mario because
3D
since
Mario?
they Zelda just went out last year. Like if the Switch 2 had been last year, I would have bet the mountains be like they're gonna do the simultaneous release of Zelda again because they're not gonna have another Zelda game like they did with the Switch
For a long time.
Yeah, I do feel. I think that the stars could align for them to have like a Mario 64 moment with the next. That would be like the one that I bet.
Factor,
Yeah.
Same form factor. You think it's going to be LCD? Mm-hmm. Okay, you think it's going to be LCD. I also agree with that just because it's a Nintendo thing to do.
Because they will want a double dip to do an OLED afterwards. I just know them. Like they're like doing that.
Yeah.
They're bastards.
And then, yeah, for sure. And then number 3, you do. So you think it's gonna be 3D Mario?
Yeah, 3D Mario would be like the launch. Like,
I'm gonna stick my neck out here.
Yeah, I want to hear
it. And say, you know what? Fuck it. I think they're gonna try to launch with 2 sellers. I think we get sure. Fine. Fuck it. I think we get 3D Mario, and I think we get Mario Kart 9 in the same launch window.
With the same launch window, that would be.
I think that would be crazy.
I think Mario Kart alone will like just move that thing off the shelf. Like really,
that's what I'm saying. If the Switch hasn't been an eye opener for them, they should launch with Mario Kart 9.
And funny enough, do you remember what were like the 2 games that completely like turned the tables around for the 3DS? Mario 3D Land and Mario Kart 7. They launched literally next to each other, and that saved the 3DS.
Yeah. And then also it was launched with a price drop too, wasn't it?
Yeah. They considered it. That was kind of like the second launch win that they wanted to do because the 3DS didn't move units at 250, and because the Vita was coming at 250, they were like, nah.
That's why we're gonna get a new Zelda game in the middle of the Switch 2 cycle.
Yeah, because of where things are, and it makes me wonder, will it be Tears of the Kingdom adjacent, kind of like in that same style, or they're gonna like really completely?
No,
that would be.
Enuma said himself he doesn't want to do it anymore. He said Tears of the Kingdom was going to be the last one that plays like that. He said he's interested in doing something new that's different.
Next. Yeah, that would be great, especially because Tears of the Kingdom felt like it maximized that formula like to the limit.
That's why we're waiting for so long, is because he said he wants to start again from scratch and be something completely different. So please wait patiently. Is pretty much what he said. So we're like, okay, cool. Middle of Switch 2 life cycle. I'm down with that.
Yeah. Will Nintendo GameCube be joining the Switch Online?
Hell no.
Like,
no one's gonna be happy about that. Hell no.
Yeah, they're just gonna be sold a la carte. So.
Yep. They may start putting some of them on the eShop. That would be kind of cool, but I don't think it's gonna join NSO.
Yeah.
I would love it. I would scream if that happens, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I would hope they still do the Pikmin 1 and 2 thing. Kind of like how they did it, because it's like kind of like a more minimal effort remastered that still like retains the spirit of how they were originally like on the GameCube, because like they have few games that they're missing: Wario World and the original Luigi's Mansion and the Rogue Squadron 2 2 and 3 that they polished with Factor 5. They could
100%.
they could release that if they wanted. So
I mean, hell yeah, they have Mario Sunshine on the Switch now. They have like a lot of other things on there. They don't have Melee. A lot of people are so mad about that, but who cares?
yeah, it's like Ultimate is all you need.
People play Melee on PC anyways.
Yes.
So the
And the FGC community has now gotten over themselves and embraced Ultimate, right? Because I remember when Ultimate like came out and Melee was removed, was like
50-50.
Yeah.
50-50 on that. Yeah, there's a lot of people who didn't like Ultimate that like Ultimate now, but a lot of people left Ultimate, especially Evo. Dude, Smash isn't even at Evo.
Anymore. Yeah, because it's like
It's
gone. So because they didn't want that after Sony bought Evo. So all right, PJ, the final segment of final segment of the show, like the games that are coming out the week of March 3rd to March 9th. I'm gonna read the releases for that week. So for that week, we got Quilts and Cats of Calico coming to PC on March 5th. We got the Outlast Trials coming to
Fire game.
Yes.
Fire game. I love the Outlast Trials so much. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, the Outlast Trials coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PS4, Xbox One, and PC on March 5th. As Dusk Falls, Xbox published a game coming to the PlayStation consoles that's kind of like a story, like a story heavy rain style game coming to the PlayStation consoles on March 7th. Snufkin Melody of Moomin Valley coming to Switch and PC on March 7th. The Pirate Queen, A Forgotten Legend coming to Quest 3, Quest 2, and PC on March 7th. Aka Art coming to PlayStation 5 and PlayStation VR 2 on March 8th. Unicorn Overlord coming to PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, and Switch on March 8th, by the way. Download the demo, it's really good. WWE 2K24 coming to PS5, Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on March 8th. Contra Operation Galaga, available on everything on March 12th. And there's also a demo you can go test. It's not that bad. So I would actually recommend people download the Unicorn Overlord demo. It's actually like a vanillaware turn-based like strategy game. It was actually pretty,
okay.
So I think that,
I'll check it out.
definitely check it out for that one. So, and that brings us to the conclusion of this week's episode, PJ. So pimp yourself. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at I'm JOK, JAYOHKAY. You can find me on YouTube as JOK, just JYOHKAY. Same thing for Twitch. Find me on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. Hell, you can find me on Google. You can look up JOK on Google and my pages will appear. I've done it multiple times. No, I am not some like underground SoundCloud rapper. There is somebody back in 2008 with the same name who did that.
Yeah,
that is not me.
Yeah, and you still haven't gotten that name, right? Somehow they still haven't released it
on Twitter.
Yeah.
But yeah, the guy doesn't do anything anymore. Yeah, regardless, just look up my name. If you go on, fuck it, go on Google, type in JAYOHKAY, you will find me. Hello, and I will see you wherever the hell you find me. If it be YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, I don't care. Just look up my name. Just do a Google search. Hell, just clicking on one of my pictures on a Google search will boost me to the top of Google. So hey,
yes,
there we go. Yeah,
yes. And then you can find me on Twitter /X at @A_Dorsegovia. You can find me on Instagram /Threads at Alejandro Segovia 93. And then you can find my written content at my personal website, thecriticalcorner.com. But my most recent work, it's over at seasongaming.com, as I said in the housekeeping. So PJ, thank you so much for filling it for this week. Hopefully I can have you more often this year, once in a while, like if time allows it.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah, I definitely have a lot more of a consistent schedule in the evenings now than I've ever had in the last 5 years. So I'm definitely more free. Yeah,
and definitely because especially now that I am in the business of always trying to fill up the schedule the weeks that Paul is not in. So I can definitely let you know which days are available, and you tell me which one will work for you, and I get you in. So,
love
and I would love, especially like around like Nintendo or even Sega adjacent stuff, because that's kind of like your expertise. So I would love to bring you for those more. And everyone that listened to this episode, I thank you so much for listening thus far. If you like what you watch or listen, give a like, give us a subscribe, leave a comment, tell us what you liked or what you didn't like, and then enjoy basically the end of February now and now into March. Hopefully winter's not too bad where you are. You can go like outside, touch some grass, or play some games, and then just press X to play. Hasta la vista, baby.